There is a teaching today in the first reading that is important and profound and also very practical. Consider, if you will, for the sake of argument, that someone went around 2,000 years ago when Jesus walked the face of the earth and were to prod him with a needle. Jesus would say, "Ouch, that hurts. Why are you persecuting me?" Right? And nobody's going to argue about that. Now, in the first reading, St. Paul hears similar words from Jesus. "Why are you persecuting me?" Paul isn't laying a finger, he's not sticking any needles into Jesus, because Jesus at this point is above in heaven. However, Paul, in his misguided zeal, is persecuting Christians. And Jesus sees these persecuted Christians as extensions of his own body, of himself. And this is a very important teaching that we have as Christians, that about the mystical body of Christ. The human body that everybody saw 2,000 years ago is above in heaven, but Jesus so identifies himself with all the baptized that he sees them as extensions of himself, and Jesus's nervous system, as it were, extends through all the members of his mystical body, so he feels their pain as well. And that's good for us to know that when we're having a difficult time, Jesus is in a very profound empathy with us. And of course, the word baptism means immersion. We are incorporated into Christ, into his body, into the church. What we heard, or what St. Paul heard Jesus say in the first reading today, is nothing more than another version of what we heard in the parable of the final judgment last November, at the end of the liturgical year, Christ the King, when Jesus says to everybody, whatever you did or did not do for the least of my brethren, you did or did not do for me. So in this is a great call to charity and to love the members of Jesus's body who are being persecuted, who are having a bad time. And this is what inspired Mother Teresa, and yesterday St. Francis de Sales and St. Vincent de Paul, and all of the enormous amount of charitable work that has been done in the church, starting with the Acts of the Apostles immediately after Jesus' ascension. But then again, it's nothing more than an extension of Jesus' own charitable work that he did during his public ministry. So who are the poor today whose pain is acutely felt by Jesus? Well, we have those to begin with who are living in what we call relative poverty. These are the people who are having maybe a difficult time with their health or their finances, the people that would be visited by the SVP, the Legion of Mary, etc. One step above that, but again on the scale of relative poverty, there are the homeless and the people living in tents and all the rest above in Dublin. But then we have what I would call the top end of the absolute poverty, and this is surely the category in which we find the unborn. 73 million little babies were killed last year by abortion. Something like 30,000 have been killed in our own country since the tragedy of the 2018 abortion referendum. And to just look at that figure of 30,000 in its absolute terms, the total number killed in the Troubles in the north of Ireland is only 3,500 versus the 30,000 of the unborn. So the question for all of us, practical question again, is how should we extend ourselves to relieve the suffering of all of these people in our world? And that's an easy answer as well. There is 3 T's that we all have. We have time, we have talent and treasure. And we can spend that on ourselves or we can spend it on somebody else. Our time, do we spend our time watching television? Or maybe do we spend our time volunteering with the SVP, the Legion of Mary, the pro-life movement, etc. Maybe we have a talent for organizing. That's always highly valued. And then we have treasure, the last T, that is our money. Do we spend it on holidays and cars and having big bank accounts and fashion and clothes, etc., or do we spend it on the poor? One of my favorite principles for living is that given to us by Gandhi, that we should live simply so others can simply live. And that was also a big principle in the life of Mother Teresa. So when we live simply, we don't save all the money in the bank and have this big fortune when we die. What we do is we live simply, we give generously to all of these good Christian charitable organizations, and then everybody gets a share. Live simply so others can simply live. And to finish on a very positive note, when we are generous with the poor, when we live sacrificially for them, that is counted by Jesus as if it was given directly to him. On the Good Friday, we had all of these people who reached out to Jesus. Mary walked with him along the way of the cross. Simon helped him carry the cross. Veronica was there to wipe his face at the 6th station. The women of Jerusalem comforted him at the 7th, and then Mary Magdalene and John the Evangelist and the other two Marys, including his mother, were there at the foot of the cross when he died. And of course, Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus did his burial. So whatever we do for the poor is done, as Jesus sees it, for himself.